What's quacking, guys? It's TheDuckChris, and I'm back for another video. Today's going to be a bit less structured than the last one, but we're going to talk about multiplayer stuff in old school RuneScape. And I would just like to say that I think the past year and the next year are going to be two of the best years for multiplayer content that we've ever had in old school. That's not something to take lightly. I think we've had a long time where people were very in favor of solo content. You know, Iron Man is very popular. People really like, of course, the old series by Bodhi and others, their Iron Man progression. And people just, you know, like to work on their own goals and progression. But I think that time has changed that a little bit, because we've all kind of gone through the progression of accounts. Obviously not everyone, there's still new players, but a lot of us have gone through the progression of a solo account at least once to a pretty far stage. And you know, if it's whether it's making a new account and going through a same sort of progression, or whether it's just continuing that progression to its far logical conclusions, which is, you know, kind of infinite in terms of very long grinds, stuff that may not technically be completable, but you go for anyway just because it's fun and something to do. You know, end game goals. But it's getting to the point where it's more fun to just do stuff with your friends, because the actual gameplay, you know, we've kind of been over a lot of it already. And part of that is because we haven't had a ton of new updates recently, and that's, you know, something that may change in the next year in terms of they've promised a lot of updates, but eventually we'll get back to the same scenario in which we've done everything there is to do plenty of times, so it's not super exciting anymore. But I think that it's important to note kind of some of the stuff that has happened and that is going to happen in terms of group content. Just in the past year or two, we've had stuff like clans, which, while people already had clan systems, something like the broadcasts, something like a variety of symbols that you can have, or ranks, like these things really have enhanced the clan system, the multiplayer aspect, and I think it's really awesome. I know I've been having a lot of fun with it. I've seen all the group iron kind of stuff when they have clans, or even just normal mains, like in their clans, whenever they get a drop or a level, like everyone is spamming and stuff. It's awesome. Group iron, of course, is another great example of this. I've been having a ton of fun with it. I know plenty of people have, just because it's not just your own progression. You get stuff for your teammates, they get stuff for you, and it's all just brand new kind of feeling of progressing not just your own account but the entire team. And of course, any rare item that you get is going to be, you know, 4 times as useful when it's helping 4 times as many people. So that's really cool. And that's the kind of stuff that we knew was going to happen in terms of group content. But that's not really all. Obviously, we have hard mode TOB, which was a nice group PVM update for people who were kind of reaching the end of group PVM. We had Temporos, which was group skilling, taking a skill like fishing, which is, you know, sometimes social in terms of everyone can fish at the same spot, but, you know, usually AFK, or if not AFK, then you want to focus really hard on your ticks, on your manipulating. You're not exactly talking to people while you're doing that. So it took a skill that was very single player and kind of brought it back to the social aspect of everyone can do it together and have fun playing. And I think a great example of that is, I don't know if you guys watched the showcase streams that came out when Group Iron was released with the big streamers, but when they went and did Temporos, Ludwig's group, like, that was really cool, and it was something that they were able to do together. And even though they didn't really care about the progression of their account or anything, it was just like some fun thing that they tried to do and learn together. So that's another example of great group content that's come out. There's been some stuff that was better in the past, and hasn't quite been the same. For example, Revenants. Revs have been, you know, one of the most polarizing content updates in terms of what people liked about it and what people didn't like about it. A lot of people didn't like the fact that in their most, you know, successful incarnation in terms of player engagement, it was when you had to pay for protection to stay for any long period of time. And I think that it was a mistake to change that, and I think that not everyone agrees with me, because obviously when you have to deal with a PvP clan who's maybe toxic, when you are feeding a lot of people who are maybe real world trading, you obviously look at that as not the best part of the game in terms of game integrity, and of course a lot of gold was coming in as well, but it's one of the kind of things that RuneScape doesn't have a ton of, and that's like completely player organized activities where the actual stuff that's in the game, you know, encourages teamwork and communication, but the players kind of take it to another level in terms of what they can do with it. And it was really interesting to me to see, like, you know, this whole area, this whole part of the game is organized and run by an entirely separate group of people that aren't part of the game staff or anything. Just like, we own this space and this is our space, and if you want to, you know, engage with this content, then you have to talk to us. And while, you know, it was more or less a monopoly, and that's like pretty crazy, you know, they did get challenges. Like, I was there, I saw the amount of teams that would hit us off, hit us in the caves on a regular basis. You know, maybe they weren't making a ton of money because, of course, my protection would hop in and hit them back. But there were times when the caves were closed because there was just so much warring going on. There was times when the people who were killing Revenants were told to gear up with crossbows and come bolt the other team because we just needed backup. You know, these kind of like clan PvP activities, it was like very unique. And I guess it still exists in seasonal Deadman mode, which we also had this year, although not being the most clan focused it's ever been, with, you know, sigils being only tradable through the GE and stuff like that. Still, yeah, it still exists in terms of a PvP activity that heavily favors clans and lets you play together and stuff. And I think Deadman still has a good place for that. But yeah, since revs have been changed, we really don't have that kind of thing in the game right now, in the main game. So something to think about in terms of when you remove group content, like, because it affects solo players a lot. Is that good or bad? In terms of future content, we have Nex coming up, and we have Raids 3 coming up. And there's been a lot of discussion about Nex in terms of, you know, it being faithful to the original and what kind of drop tables it should have and stuff. And the poll's out now, so kind of those discussions are coming to an end. But it is interesting to think about, you know, another group boss coming that is going to be solely a group boss. And in all likelihood, on Iron Man and solo players, if you want to get all the drops, it's going to take a long time to finish. And you're going to have to find teams to go with and all that stuff. And people don't necessarily like that from a solo perspective, but from a group perspective, you know, having a boss that you have to rely on your team to kill with you because you can't kill it on your own, it makes that drop, that special drop, that much more exciting. And I think that's something that was missing from Nightmare, because although Nightmare is easier to kill in teams than in solo, you could still solo it and get the same or better chance to get the unique drop in terms of overall hours. So there was no real incentive to do it in teams unless you were pet hunting, and even then the pet hunting rate got changed later, and people just treated it as like a hassle to find a team to get killing it. And of course you would get crashed and all that stuff, so it's definitely more complicated. But I think there's also other problems with Nightmare that made it not super suitable for group content. Like, for example, the fact that the mechanics while there are some teamwork-based mechanics, it's easy to die from mechanics that will just are based on solo, mechanical execution. Like if you don't click off the spot fast enough, you die. If you don't click out of the Lamborghini zoom area fast enough, you die. And basically that just means that it's kind of a solo boss that 5 other people are killing at the same time. Everyone has to switch their prayers individually. Like the actual group aspect of it was only really around when you were in extremely efficient teams, that were using some small strategies in terms of differing gear per group, in terms of differing strategies per person, to make it a little better. Some people had the Warhammer, some people had the Dragon 2-hand, some people brought claws, and then some people had the volatile staff. Efficient Nightmare, there were roles, but overall it's basically a solo boss with 4 other people doing the same solo boss at the same time. It's not the same as something like Ulm, where you actually have to all stand in the same place together, and if anyone moves, it messes it up. Like, you don't want to burn each other. Even something like TOB, where you have to pass the staff around in P1 of Verzik. Of course, there's the maze running in Sodaseg. Like, there's all these mechanics that require actual teamwork. Nihilokis is another great example. Everyone with a different role. So in that way, I think Nightmare didn't really succeed because it didn't emphasize the group aspect enough. And that's kind of very easy to see in the fact that when you do Fasani's Nightmare, it's basically the same fight as regular Nightmare in terms of mechanics. Like, it's really not any different when there aren't any people there. And because of that, I think that it's not a very well-designed group boss. And, obviously made worse by the fact there's a huge drop table that everyone's trying to get. So Nex, I think, from what I know of Nex, from RS3 and also from pre-EOC videos and stuff, it's more group design. Like, there's a lot more mechanics that require actual teamwork. So I think it should be more interesting like that. And then later in the year, we're going to have Raids 3, which should be about the same. It should hopefully emphasize teamwork at the various bosses, especially depending on what kind of, I think they're called invocations, you use to make it harder or easier, and to increase the loot potential. Obviously, we don't really know a lot about Raids 3. They've said that the initial plan was to have a dual boss at the end, being 2 different bosses, which of course could make for some very interesting mechanics and stuff. But overall, Raids 3 is a great kind of question in terms of group content, because with chambers being soloable, very efficiently soloable, but also encouraging group content in terms of making it easier. That's like one model they could follow. TOB is another model they could follow, where it's almost entirely designed for group content. Solo is technically possible, but it's not efficient at all. And even duo is like quite hard. So if you're not like very skilled PVMer, like, you probably are going to do at least 3 or 4 man teams. And they could go with a method like that, a model like that, where for Raids 3, where we're again sticking to group content. That would be a lot of group content between the past 2 years, between everything that we've said and Nex and Raids 3, and depending on how useful the upgrades are. The Iron Men and the people who like solo content a bit more might start to complain a bit more, saying, all this group content, there's no solo content, like, I can't do anything to progress my goals unless my whole team is online. But I think that I would want to go back to what we were thinking about at the beginning of this talk and just say that, like, even though it may take longer to get your items from group content, even though it may be more of a hassle to put teams together and avoid getting crashed, at the end of the day, it's going to be more fun. You're going to have more fun playing with your friends, watching your friends get upgrades at the same time you do. You're going to have better memories when you all get something together versus when you just get it yourself. And maybe that's, even emphasized by how much people like sharing stuff on their solo progression, whether it's videos, Twitch chats, putting it in someone else's Twitch chat, I'm tweeting about it to Discords, clan broadcasts, clan Discords, loot channels. Like, you know, even back in the day, we had forum threads with pictures of everyone sharing their levels and achievements. And I think it's important to remember overall that this is a multiplayer game, and it's more fun when you play together. And I think that one thing that you might want to think about is that a lot of people have said that if Jagex ever wants to stop making this game, that they should just make an offline version that anyone can play. But I'm wondering nowadays, like, would people really play it? You know, would people really play a single player offline version? You know, if you have no one else to share your achievements with or no one else to play with, and you don't even see people around the game. Like, I love seeing people around the game. I always right click them to see what their name is, to see what's going on, maybe give them a little "what's up, gamer?" And I think that that's a very valuable part of the game. So overall, that's all I got to say on group content. I think it's I love that we're getting a lot of focus group content. It really keeps me invested in the game and makes it more fun. And I look forward to the stuff that we're going to have in the next year. Let me know your thoughts on this ramble, what you think about group content in 2021, 22, what you've liked about it, what you've disliked about it, what you would want to see from future group content, or do you prefer solo? Please leave a like and subscribe if you liked this video, if you enjoyed, and maybe check out some of the other videos I got on the channel. Until next time, that's it, and peace.